Have you ever felt that the relationships in your life drain you more than they nurture you? Have you wondered why you keep attracting the same type of mediocre love over and over again? Take a moment and think about it. When was the last time you looked in the mirror and asked yourself if you're living the life you truly want? Not the one others expect from you, not the one that seems right to everyone else, but the one that truly resonates with your soul. Carl Jung, one of the most profound and visionary psychologists of the 20th century, left us with a revolutionary teaching that few have the courage to follow. When you learn to genuinely love yourself, mediocre love simply cannot remain in your life. It's as if your elevated energy naturally repels anything that isn't at your level. We live in a world that has conditioned us to believe we must constantly sacrifice ourselves for others to be worthy of love. We work in jobs we hate, maintain relationships that empty us, and fulfill expectations we never chose. And all this for what? To gain the approval of people who, in many cases, aren't living their own truths either. Jung understood this perfectly when he said, "Your vision will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakes." This awakening is precisely what happens when you finally decide to love yourself first. But let's be honest, choosing yourself isn't easy in a world designed to distract you, to keep you trapped in routines, expectations, and countless commitments that seem inevitable. The truth few dare to face is this. Every time you choose others over yourself, you're telling your inner being that it doesn't matter enough. You're ignoring that quiet voice from the depths of your unconscious, trying to guide you toward a more authentic life. Jung dedicated much of his life to studying the unconscious, that deep part of us containing wisdom, intuition, and truth. He taught us that our connection to the unconscious isn't optional. It's an essential part of who we are. However, we often ignore its signals because facing them can be uncomfortable. Think for a moment. Have you ever felt that gut feeling telling you something isn't right in a relationship, but you ignored it? Have you noticed how your body reacts when you're with certain people, tensing up or feeling exhausted for no apparent reason? Those aren't coincidences. It's your soul speaking to you, showing you that something needs to change, even though you're afraid to do it. Reflect on the relationships you've had. How many of them truly came from a place of authenticity? And how many were driven by fear of loneliness, the need to meet social expectations, or simply not wanting to be alone? Jung invites us to reflect on this because he knows that relationships that don't come from your inner truth only create more chaos and disconnection in your life. Self-love, according to Jung, isn't a superficial or selfish concept. It's not about posting motivational phrases on social media or repeating empty affirmations in front of the mirror. True self-love involves deep work, knowing yourself, accepting your shadows, integrating your rejected parts, and living from your authenticity. It's a journey to the center of your being that requires courage. Jung said, "I am not what happened to me, I am what I choose to become." This phrase perfectly encapsulates the essence of loving yourself. You are not your past wounds, not the rejections you've experienced, not the failed relationships you've had. You are the decisions you make today, the way you choose to relate to yourself and others. When you begin this journey of self-discovery and self-love, something extraordinary starts to happen in your relationships. Mediocre love begins to disappear from your life. Those people who were only interested in what you could give them, those relationships based on emotional dependency or fear, those bonds that kept you small, they simply stop resonating with you. It's as if your energy field completely changes. Suddenly, you become magnetic for experiences and people who are aligned with your new vibration. Jung called this synchronicity, those seemingly casual but deeply meaningful moments that occur when you're in tune with your inner self. But let me be clear, this process isn't instantaneous or always painless. When you start to truly love yourself, you'll face resistance, both internal and external. Your conditioned mind will try to lead you back to the familiar, even if the familiar harms you. People in your life who benefited from your lack of boundaries may react negatively when you begin to establish them. Jung perfectly understood this dynamic when he stated that Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. Those negative reactions are mirrors reflecting aspects of yourself that still need healing. They're opportunities to deepen your process of self-knowledge. One of the reasons mediocre love disappears when you love yourself is because you develop what Jung called the discriminative function. You begin to distinguish between what nurtures you and what drains you, between relationships based on mutual respect and those founded on codependency, between genuine love and simple attachment. This clarity is impossible to achieve when you're disconnected from yourself. Imagine for a moment how your life would be if every relationship you had was a source of growth and joy. If every exchange left you with more energy, not less. If you could be completely yourself, without filters or masks, and were loved precisely for that. This isn't an unattainable fantasy. It's the natural result of learning to love yourself first. Jung reminds us that the most difficult thing is the most essential, to be what we truly are. How much truth there is in these words. We've become experts at pleasing, adapting, being social chameleons who change according to what we think others expect. And in that process, we've lost touch with our essence. The path to self-love begins with brutal honesty with yourself. Ask yourself, what parts of me have I been repressing to be accepted? What needs have I been ignoring to avoid making others uncomfortable? What dreams have I abandoned because someone told me they were impossible? Jung spoke extensively about the shadow, those parts of ourselves we've repressed, denied, or rejected. To love yourself completely, you need to embrace your shadow. Recognize that your flaws, your fears, even those aspects you consider negative, are an integral part of who you are. There is no light without darkness, no fullness without integration. The meeting with oneself is one of the most unpleasant encounters, Jung said. And he was right. Facing your own contradictions, your self-destructive patterns, your deepest fears, is not an easy task. But it's precisely in that encounter where the possibility of true love is born, both toward yourself and toward others. When you begin to accept all your facets, something magical happens. You stop looking in others for what you lack in yourself. You stop expecting a relationship to complete or save you. You stop settling for emotional crumbs because you know you deserve the whole feast. And here's the paradox. It's precisely when you stop desperately needing others' love that you become capable of experiencing love in its purest and most elevated form. Mediocre love feeds on your insecurity, your fear of loneliness, your belief that you don't deserve more. How could it survive when you start recognizing your own worth? It simply cannot. It vanishes like fog before the sun. Jung understood that our relationships are projections of our inner world. Everything that irritates us about others leads us to an understanding of ourselves, he said. This means that the mediocre relationships you've attracted aren't coincidence or bad luck. They're the perfect reflection of the relationship you've had with yourself. If you've treated yourself harshly, you'll attract people who treat you harshly. If you haven't valued your time, you'll attract people who don't value it either. If you've ignored your needs, you'll attract relationships where your needs will be ignored. It's a psychological law that operates with mathematical precision. But here's the good news. Just as you've attracted what reflects your lack of self-love, you'll begin to attract what reflects your new state of consciousness when you learn to love yourself. It's inevitable. It's the same law operating in the opposite direction. Loving yourself means establishing healthy boundaries. Jung was a strong advocate for boundaries as an essential part of psychological development. Without clear boundaries, there is no clear identity. Without clear identity, there is no possibility of authentic relationships. How many times have you said yes when you wanted to say no? How many times have you allowed behaviors that hurt you just out of fear of losing someone? How many times have you sacrificed your well-being to meet others' expectations? Every time you do this, you're sending a clear message to the universe. I don't value myself enough. Setting boundaries isn't being selfish. It's not being difficult. It's an act of self-love that paradoxically allows for more authentic and deep relationships. As Jung said, what we tolerate teaches us who we are. When you stop tolerating disrespectful treatment, emotional neglect, or mediocrity in your relationships, you're unequivocally declaring your worth. Another crucial aspect of self-love is learning to listen to your intuition. Jung considered intuition a fundamental psychological function, a form of perception that goes beyond the rational. Your intuition is that subtle voice that warns you when something isn't right, even when everything seems perfect on the surface. Have you ever ignored those red flags in a relationship? Have you dismissed that visceral feeling that told you something didn't fit? Most of us have done it. We've silenced our intuition in favor of rationalization. But they have so many positive qualities. Nobody's perfect. Maybe I'm being too demanding. Jung would invite us to do exactly the opposite, to pay attention to those subtle signals, to trust that inner wisdom that often knows, long before our conscious mind, what we truly need and what is harming us. When you begin to trust your intuition, you become practically immune to mediocre love. You detect it immediately. You feel the incongruence, the lack of authenticity, the energy that doesn't match your new standards. And most importantly, you have the courage to walk away, even when the voice of fear and scarcity tries to convince you to stay. Your vision will become clear only when you can look into your own heart, Jung said. Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes. This awakening is the very essence of self-love. It's recognizing that all the answers you've been seeking outside, in relationships, in external validation, in achievements, have always been within you. The process of awakening isn't always comfortable. In fact, Jung spoke of the dark night of the soul, that period of confusion and disorientation that often precedes a great spiritual or psychological breakthrough. When you decide to love yourself, you may first have to face everything you've been avoiding, your wounds, your fears, your self-destructive patterns. You might find yourself in a period of solitude after walking away from toxic relationships. You might feel anxiety when setting boundaries for the first time. You might face resistance from people who were accustomed to your old way of being. All of this is normal. It's part of the process. Jung reminds us that there is no birth of consciousness without pain. Self-love implies a rebirth, a profound transformation. And like any birth, it carries a certain degree of pain. But it's a different pain than that of stagnation, of remaining in mediocre relationships, or of denying your true essence. It's a pain that heals, that liberates, that transforms. As you advance on this path, you'll begin to notice profound changes in your relationships, not just in romantic ones, but in all your interactions. You'll naturally surround yourself with people who respect your boundaries, who value your authenticity, who see you and appreciate you for who you truly are. This happens because, as Jung taught, like attracts like. When you operate from an elevated level of consciousness and self-love, you attract people who are on a similar frequency. It's not magic, it's deep psychology. Mediocre love, that which leaves you with more questions than answers, more pain than joy, more confusion than clarity, simply cannot exist in the same space as solid self-love. They are incompatible energies. Like water and oil, they cannot mix. And here is one of Jung's most transformative teachings. You don't need to actively fight against mediocre love in your life. You don't need dramatic confrontations or ultimatums. You simply need to elevate your vibration through self-love, and what doesn't resonate with that new frequency will naturally fade away. What you resist persists, Jung said. The more you fight against something, the more power you give it. Instead, when you simply choose a different direction, that of self-love, authenticity, living according to your deepest values, what isn't aligned with that path vanishes almost effortlessly. This doesn't mean the process is always smooth or linear. There will be days when the temptation to return to old patterns will be strong. Days when the fear of the unknown will make you question your new path. Days when the comfort of the familiar, even if painful, will seem preferable to the challenge of the new. In those moments, remember Jung's words, "I am not what happened to me, I am what I choose to become. Each day, each moment, you have the opportunity to choose again, to reaffirm your commitment to yourself, to choose self-love over fear, authenticity over external approval, your truth over others' expectations. As this new pattern takes root, you'll begin to experience what Jung called synchronicity, those meaningful moments of coincidence that seem too perfect to be chance. People who share your values will appear in your life at the exact moment you need them. Opportunities that resonate with your deepest essence will manifest when you least expect them. Experiences that confirm you're on the right path will become more frequent. This happens because, as Jung observed, there is a deep connection between our inner and outer worlds. When we transform one, we inevitably transform the other. What is inside is outside, he said. Your relationships are simply a reflection of your relationship with yourself. If you've been attracting relationships where you're abandoned, ask yourself, where have you abandoned yourself? If you've attracted partners who don't value your time, ask yourself, where haven't you valued your own time? If you've tolerated lack of commitment, ask yourself, where have you failed to commit to yourself? This level of honesty can be uncomfortable at first, but as Jung said, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. It's in the honest confrontation with ourselves where we find the keys to our transformation. And now, let me speak directly to you. Yes, you who are listening to these words right now. Perhaps you've been in a cycle of mediocre relationships that have left you feeling inadequate, confused, or empty. Perhaps you've been questioning whether you'll ever experience a love that truly sees you, honors you, and celebrates you for who you are. The answer is yes, absolutely yes. But that love must begin with yourself. Not as an abstract concept or a pretty phrase, but as a daily practice, moment by moment. In every decision you make, in every boundary you set, in every truth you dare to express. Jung said that the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. This is your privilege, your birthright, to be authentically you, without apologies, without explanations, without diluting yourself to make others comfortable. And when you claim this privilege, something extraordinary happens. People who see and appreciate your authenticity are drawn to your life like moths to a flame. Mediocre love can only exist when you yourself settle for less than you deserve. When you believe, on some level, that you are not worthy of more. When you've accepted past wounds as truth and turned them into your identity. Jung reminds us that knowing your own darkness is the best method for dealing with the darkness of other people. When you've faced your own shadows, when you've integrated your rejected parts, when you've loved yourself through your most difficult moments, you develop a kind of radar for authenticity. You can recognize genuine love because you've experienced it within yourself. And when you know the feeling of true love, that which accepts, liberates, celebrates, nurtures, how could you settle for less? Mediocre love thrives in unconsciousness. It feeds on unexamined patterns, unhealed wounds, limiting beliefs that have never been questioned. But as Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. When you love yourself, you're bringing light to those dark corners. You're saying, I will no longer live on autopilot. I will no longer allow my past wounds to determine my future. I will no longer mistake familiarity for love. This is a revolutionary act. In a world that constantly teaches you that your worth lies in what you do, how you look, what you possess, or who loves you, deciding that you are inherently valuable, exactly as you are now, is an act of rebellion. And as with any revolution, there will be resistance. The system, both internal and external, will fight to maintain the status quo. The critical voices in your head will become louder before they quiet down. People who benefited from your lack of boundaries may intensify their manipulation attempts before backing down or leaving. Jung understood this when he said, acceptance of oneself is the essence of the moral problem and the epitome of a whole outlook on life. Accepting yourself completely, with your lights and shadows, your strengths and weaknesses, your successes and failures, is perhaps the hardest work you'll do, but also the most liberating. Because when you fully accept yourself, You no longer need anyone else's validation. You no longer need to search in others for what has always been within you. And paradoxically, it is precisely this freedom from need that makes you magnetic for the kind of love you've always desired. Mediocre love feeds on need, on lack, on the belief that you need someone to be complete. True love, on the other hand, flourishes in fullness, in abundance, in the meeting of two people who are already complete in themselves and who choose to share that fullness with each other. As Jung said, the meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. But for this transformation to be positive, both substances must be pure, authentic, not diluted by fear or need. So I invite you to begin or deepen your journey of self-love today. Not as an abstract idea, but as a concrete practice. Ask yourself, what would it mean to treat myself today with the same love, respect, and consideration I would offer to someone I deeply love? Perhaps it means setting a boundary you've been postponing. Perhaps it means speaking a truth you've been keeping quiet. Perhaps it simply means taking a moment to recognize and celebrate your own worth without needing justification or explanation. Whatever it is, do it with the conviction that you deserve the same love you've so generously given to others. As Jung said, your task is not to seek for love, but merely to seek and find all the barriers within yourself that you have built against it. And as you remove those barriers, as you open yourself to the possibility of loving yourself fully, without conditions or reservations, you'll notice how mediocre love begins to disappear from your life. Not because you're actively rejecting it, but because it no longer resonates with who you've become. In its place, you'll begin to attract relationships that reflect your new state of being. People who appreciate your authenticity, who respect your boundaries, who celebrate your light and understand your darkness. People who don't seek to complete you, but to walk beside you on a journey of mutual growth and discovery. This is the transformative power of self-love that Jung spoke about. It's not a final destination, but a continuous journey. A daily commitment to yourself that, over time, not only transforms your relationships, but every aspect of your life. So today, in this moment, make the decision. Decide that you deserve more than mediocre love. Decide that you're ready to do the inner work necessary to manifest the love you truly desire. Decide that from now on, the standard for what you allow in your life will be determined by your inherent worth, not by your fears or wounds. As Jung beautifully said, I find my fate in what I flee from in my fate. Often it's precisely in what we fear most. Loneliness, rejection, facing our own shadows, where we find our deepest liberation. Mediocre love has no power over someone who has dared to face their deepest fears and has emerged with an unshakable love for themselves. And you, listening to these words right now, are perfectly capable of being that person. The invitation is here. The moment is now. Will you dare to love yourself so fully that mediocre love simply has no place in your life? If this message has resonated with you, I invite you to share it with someone who needs it. Perhaps you know a person who is struggling with draining relationships, who is settling for less than they deserve, who has forgotten their own worth. Leave me a comment sharing which part of this message touched your heart. What aspect of self-love do you find most challenging? What change are you willing to make to begin moving away from mediocre love? Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss more videos like this, where we explore the depths of Jungian psychology and how to apply it to transform your life and relationships. Remember, as Carl Jung said, you are the only one who knows what's in your heart. Only you can decide what kind of love you deserve. And when you decide you deserve the best, the universe has no choice but to respond. Thank you for being here, for taking this step in your journey of self-discovery. I'll see you in the next video, where we'll continue to deepen our understanding of Jung's teachings and how to apply them to create a life of true authenticity and fulfillment. Until then, remember, loving yourself isn't a luxury. It's the foundation of all lasting transformation.